Good evening, darlings. It's been a while. Okay, no, it hasn't been that long, but anyway, it has been a long week. I will tell you that much. So, I wanted to start this new series, and first, I hope you guys are having a good week so far, having a good evening, afternoon, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever time of the day it is. Hopefully, you're doing something that you like that is making your heart happy and that you're safe. So, anyhow, back to the series. I wanted to start the series because I've alluded to this in my previous, some of my previous videos, streaming videos, of like these little short stories from fellow coworkers who have, I don't want to say horror stories about vacancies and filling positions for like different departments or what have you. Uh, so we were kind of like bouncing story, not so much like who has the worst story. It kind of turned into that. I don't think we started out thinking we would have stories that would be like worse than the other, but um, a lot of the stories that were shared are pretty funny. Yeah, it, at the very least, they're pretty interesting. So, I want to share some with you guys. Uh, I wouldn't say these are the top stories, but they do stand out, and they're not at all numbered by priority. Like this is funnier, or this is a more sad, or something to that effect. They simply are, and again, they're collectively stories from a different hiring managers, as they are called. Uh, so, this particular one that I want to start with was kind of interesting because sometimes when I hear about like a new position that's going to be opening soon, I start to um, I start to kind of open up different tabs in my head, if I may, and just start to fill in the gaps of like what department is hiring and what are they actually looking for. Like say, what is the position they're hiring for, and then I try to get the feel of the staff that are in that department. So I can also contemplate on what various types of personalities would be a good fit for that department and for that position. So, anyhow, this particular one, they were hiring for a an admin position, and sometimes it gets very easy because from the pool of candidates that you get maybe five or six that you really like, and it's a really good fit. I wouldn't say a great fit because everybody, including myself, has room for growth and room for improvement. So, close enough, good fit, yeah. I mean, they're basically in, I guess, in that box. So, this particular one, though, it was very interesting. I like sitting in interviews and interviewing people because I like meeting new people this way and then also sharing with them the candidates. Even if they're not a good fit, I like to share with them tips and tricks of the industry I'm in, which is in healthcare, on how to be and like at interviews, and coming in 15 minutes early, because you always want to come in early and try to be prepared. You're never really fully prepared for interviews. There's always that anxiety bubble that just kind of bubbles up in your stomach and just kind of takes over a little bit when you show up to the actual location of the interview. Um, so, uh, and then also, there's like candidates that apply because they want to see what different sort of questions there are, like interview questions there are for the various positions, right? Some of the candidates that I have met are like interviewing for various different positions. So some of them I would see maybe twice or maybe three times because we're interviewing for various other positions and they happen to be on that list. Uh, so with like my industry, just a brief overview. The industry I'm in is healthcare. It is a government. Um, it's a government position, and we can't we can't interview people if they haven't applied to the position and have been banded or like get on a list. Like you have to first submit your application, take the exam, and then you get banded, meaning you are scored. That's what they call. That's what we call it. It's banding. You get scored on whatever your score is on the exam, yeah, and then from that you go on from it ranges from band 1 to band 5. Band 5 could be 70 to 80% percentile the score, and then so on and so forth. That's just an example, but um, I always I've had candidates come in and say, "Oh, I can't believe you called me and I'm in a lower band." I always tell candidates that the lower band or the higher band doesn't guarantee that you would get the position. It just means you're a little bit closer to the front of the line, but you still have to present to the interviewer your personality, your affinity to complete the work, the tasks that are assigned to you, and those other things. Attendance, your punctuality. Of course, those things matter. It's not always true that like us hiring managers look for experience, depend unless obviously you're applying to be like the CEO of something. Definitely would have to, ensure that you have sufficient experience guiding and or managing over 100 people, let's say, if you're trying to apply for a CEO position or a chief position, like an executive position, right? But for like the relatively low level administrative positions, I have this annoying cough. No, it's not. I'm sick. I was doing some exercises and I think I was holding my breath too much, so it just irritated my diaphragm. Uh, and so back to, I know I'm going off on tangent. I um, I try. I really try to be as subjective as I can be. There's always that gray area, right, in every human mind, where you're thinking, oh yeah, this is really a great fit or whatever, and then you become stuck in that. So I really try not to. I try to treat each candidate as a fresh candidate, like it's the very first candidate I have ever interviewed. just to make sure that I am making and grading them accordingly. Uh, there are some stellar ones that I have met, and I have actually hired them, and they have moved on to bigger and better things, still within the same industry, but have climbed the ladder, so to speak. And I'm very, very happy, and we still keep in contact and things like that. And that makes me happy when people are given an opportunity and they take that opportunity to improve themselves and to progress. It's not true for everybody, but you always hope that the person who you give an opportunity to will not take that opportunity and waste it. So this particular candidate, we had, I want to say like 15 or 20 candidates to interview. And this was a very interesting day because the candidate, we first did like a mini like phone interview, just to see how they would be. Some people would prefer a phone interview versus like a face to face, and some people prefer both. If somebody asks me, can I do a phone interview? I try to find it in my schedule to accommodate them. Preferably, obviously, you would want to see them in person, right? Even though they are masked up. Because there is something about, well, interviewing in person that's just, you're likely to get the feel of the person better versus just having conversation over the phone. But anywho, so this particular candidate, I would like to call her our Barbie doll. Yes, she came in Barbied out. Barbied out. Yes. It was cute. I mean, I have no preference whether they wear all black or they wear all blue or like navy blue, or they wear just a button up top with like slacks, or they come in whatever array color they want to come in. So long as they are coming in, dressed modestly for the position that they're applying for. I mean, if again you're trying to be the CEO, I wouldn't expect you to just come to the interview with like flip flops on and a t-shirt and some baggy jeans, right? I mean, just saying, just putting that into perspective. But back to our Barbie doll. So this story, we are calling it the Barbie doll and her handsy Ken. Yes, the Barbie doll and her handsy Ken. So the story goes, have you ever had a candidate who brought their boyfriend to the interview? Now, I know that people sometimes, just to alleviate their anxiety, they would bring a friend with them, or they would bring somebody with them who can help them stamp down, minimize the anxiety, right? Because interviews are anxiety inducing. Let's be honest. I've gone to many. I have been on the opposite side of that table many times as well, but it still gives me anxiety. Either I'm interviewing and I'm getting interviewed, does not matter. I still get anxiety. And sometimes I get really excited. So maybe I feel like it's anxiety, but it's more like excitement. But I I have I would like to think plenty experience with interviews, do's and don'ts, right? Although our team try to make everybody as comfortable as possible, as best as we can, obviously. So this candidate, our Barbie doll, brought their boyfriend to the interview, and we were hiring to fill an admin position, and this candidate for that specific day was the first interview. The candidate was actually really pleasant. They were visibly anxious and, a little bit more restless than I anticipated. I had I was reviewing their resume. It looked like they had plenty experience. It even seemed to me like the entry level admin position that we are hiring for might be something that might not interest them simply because they have sufficient experience to apply for something else, or at least attempt to interview for something else. Although I didn't ask that question during the interview, but it crossed my mind. So the the candidate again was nice enough. She was very polite. The thing that struck me was that the boyfriend was with her. She introduced the gentleman that was with her as her boyfriend. So it 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 was very odd to me because one minute she was like anxiety ridden laden, and then the next second they were making out, like full on, like you would do at home, basically, just exchanging salivas, maybe exchanging tongues, I don't know, or digging for gold, I don't know. But it was very uncomfortable because there were other candidates in the lobby who were also waiting for the other hiring managers for their own positions, right? That they're applying for. So it was like, what the heck? Where do I put this one? Like, where do I put them? Or do we just hurry up and get them in a room to where we can interview the candidate? Because the tongue twisting, the pat down acrobatics with her handsy can was off the charts of bold, like off the charts. And I almost like, hello, the dentures are coming out of my mouth. I don't have dentures. But if I did have dentures, whew, I don't think Fixodent could help it. Because those two were just like, whoa, whoa, like, whoa. So, because we wanted to remain professional, I called in the candidate. I had to call her name a few times because she couldn't hear me too much because yeah, she was very busy with her hands again. And so she gets up, she straightens herself out. I mean, at which point you know I asked her, would you like to use the restroom first? Maybe you need to just use the restroom. I mean, I didn't want to tell her, like, girl, the lipstick is like all over your face. But then she would know, right? I mean, if you're sucking tongue with your boyfriend in the lobby where you're supposed to be getting interviewed, waiting to be interviewed, you would know, right? I mean, honestly, I was just like, whoa. Yeah. It- like, that song was probably playing in her head, that one Maya song. Like, your love is like, whoa. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Uh, so she declined to use the restroom. And then I said, okay, fine. If you want to just follow me to the conference room and we will start the interview. Her boyfriend walks in with her, and I was like, hello, sir, did you need to use the restroom? And he's like, no, I'm coming with her. And I said, I'm sorry? Like, like, so many things were going through my mind. Like, Mr. Man, this is not a clinic. We're not here to, well, check on your patient or something, or assess them in any way besides, their competency, would work competency. Like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. And he's like, if she goes somewhere, I go with her. Everywhere we go together. And I'm like, I briefly I thought it was a joke. So when she sits across from me from in the table at the table, cheese nuts, in the conference room, and he sits right beside her. I looked to my partner, who was also going to be sitting in the interview, and I had to make an executive decision. Like, sorry, sir, but we only have one candidate, and this is the candidate. You would need to either wait for her in the lobby, or you can wait for her in your vehicle if you wish. But we will not be having two people for this one interview unless you are here to translate for her. And he said, no, of course not. Okay, so please make your exit so we can commence with the interview. And he said, but I go with her everywhere. And I'm like, sir, I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm sure you go with her everywhere. I wanted to tell him, like, hello, you guys were practically on top of each other in the lobby. Like, ew. Hold your horses. Holy cow. You could have done that at home before you got here, but I'm just saying. And he was like, so is it going to take long? And I said, sir, we would really like to start with our interview now. So if you please don't mind exiting into the lobby or waiting for her at your vehicle, we'd greatly appreciate it. So he stomps away, but before he does that, he plants another, like, tongue sucking kiss into his Barbie doll. So I was just like, oh my goodness, is this a relatively new thing? It's like, what is going on right now? Oosh. I thought I was getting pranked. I really would. I was like, ooh. So he was like, okay, baby, I'm going to be waiting for you in the car. And she's like, oh, don't leave me. And I'm like, ma'am, we'd like to start with the interview now, please. I mean, we still wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. So we proceeded with the interview. However, for each of the questions we had, she was just not there anymore. She was no longer interested. She would give, like, okay, yeah, like, one word answers. Like, if we, for example, asked her, so if you have a difficult coworker and you have to work on a project together and you're assigned this task, and the other coworker and difficult person to work with, how would you handle that? Her answer was, well, do I have to? I mean, I feel like there were other ways to answer this by like I know people want to be frank about it, right? They want to be honest, but I felt like there were other ways to answer it, like a more diplomatic way, right? Like if I were given the task or the assignment, then I will certainly complete it with whoever's assigned to work with me on it, regardless if I'm going to have to complete the work, most of the work, if not all of the work. Hopefully not, but if they happen to be very, very difficult and I'm unable to complete tasks that they should be doing, I would definitely at least bring it up to the attention of my supervisor. Something to that effect, or some other thing. But just saying, do I have to? I kind of felt bad, like asking her a follow up question to it, because it was like, do I even waste my time? But then I still wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. Like maybe that would jog her memory, because she has only had two other jobs, and she really had been striving to get a much more permanent job with benefits and things like that. And unfortunately, because she was so enamored with Mr. Kendall, she couldn't concentrate. So we had to cut the interview short and thanked her for her time. I mean, Austin and his fembot had to go do what they had to do. Hopefully, it wasn't at our campus, but hey, look, like I said, sometimes you just gotta leave your significant other behind, or try to reschedule your interview. Just saying. It bodes better for you if you just try to reschedule versus bringing your Austin, your Kendall, and then basically doing the do at the interview. Anyway, about that. So please don't do that. Whatever, it doesn't matter what the job is, what the position is, please don't do that. Pl- Try not to waste the time of the people who are interviewing and your time too. I mean, look, I always feel like industries are small enough. Somehow you will come around to the same people, and or people who may have like been shared stories about you, or um, people that might be able to help you climb the ladder and give you an opportunity, but you're not letting them give you that opportunity because you're already like shooting yourself in the foot, basically. So please keep in mind, do not bring the hands again. Just saying. Oh, I do remember another one. I call this one the bougie star. Glamour or bust. So it's another entry level admin position that we were filling. And I was very excited about this group of people. And this particular candidate was also in that group of people to interview. I was very excited about them. They were like young professionals who were very, at least in their resumes, are very eager to work and experience something different from what their previous positions were or jobs were, non-governmental jobs. And I was again very excited for them. Um, on paper, they were great. All of them were great. So I'm like, the hardest thing we're gonna have to encounter would be selecting two candidates from this group, because it was two positions that we were trying to fill. So this particular one, I call the bougie star. Have you ever had a candidate pick apart on site before the actual interview begins everything? Like everything. Like everything. Probably even the air we were breathing that day. So, I have to say though, I gotta give 3 snaps for the audacity of this candidate. They were on time. They clearly had lofty, glamorous goals. That's fine. I mean, look, everybody has glamorous goals in mind, right? Lofty goals. Some really strive to attain those goals. Some remain dreams. Lofty goals, they remain dreams because you're not really expending an effort into reaching that goal, right? So when we send out potential interview requests to candidates, like, would you be interested in interviewing with us? We usually have a really long emails that pertains to the position. It includes the salary, the benefits, the hours, the location of where you will be. Pretty much everything that you would need to make a decision. Is this even an interview that is worth taking? Or should I go to this interview because maybe I might learn something, right? Literal information bomb. Like, there's zero reason why you would be confused about the particular location or as a salary, the benefits, whatever it is pertaining again to the position. This candidate, though, I was not anticipating because they were very shy and kind of just like kept to themselves amongst the group of candidates that we had for that day. And I'm thinking, okay, well, you know what? It could be anxiety, like interview anxiety, right? Some people pace back and forth. Some people kind of like flip their resumes over and over, just kind of like re summarizing their resumes in their head, or re-memorizing it, or some other thing that like some of the candidates would do to kind of lessen the anxiety. So again, this particular candidate, once we got them in the interview room, and they weren't even seated yet because they were walking behind me, and I said, okay, so here's the interview room. We will be conducting the interview here. Please have a seat, blah, blah, blah. And I get to my seat, to where I should be sitting. I look over to the candidate, and the candidate's like at the doorway. And the first thing out of their mouth is like, wow, that's old. OLD. Like aged. And I was like, wait, what is going on right now? And they were pointing at the file cabinets, the paintings, the walls, the ceiling, the table, the chairs. And then us, the interviewers. I was like, I'm sorry? And the candidate was like, yeah, everything here is just old. Like, hello? I mean, I'm not knocking on 50, but I'm just saying. Is this something you should be like speaking out loud? Like verbal diarrhea was real with this one, honestly. They were like, why is this place so old? Like I can't feel the energy from this place. And it's like, this is where we conduct our interviews. This is not where you're going to potentially work, but this is the building we conduct interviews in. And they're like, ugh. So they were literally dejected. And I'm like, okay, would you like to continue with the interview or should we just part ways here? And the candidate was like, you know what? Whatever. It's just not my vibe. And I'm like, whoa. Well, I'm sorry that we are not your vibe. And I am sorry we are too old for you, as is this building, which is far older than we are. Honestly. I mean, sometimes you get like some candidates where you feel like they're really good, and then they open their mouths, it's just verbal diarrhea. It's like, it's nonstop. You can't even give them Imodium because it's not even going to work. Just like, OMG. Like, okay, look. This must have been like the ghost of Miranda Priestley entered their body or something. But then again, in our interview email, I clearly did not indicate on there that we were interviewing for a Vogue editor. I'm just saying. It was just, yeah. What a sad, sad thing. It's like, if you, the candidate, are set on a specific industry to work in, just stick with that. I mean, again, it's not like the job posting is for like next in fashion. It's not. We're not looking for the next, like, how do you call this? Michael Kors or like Prabal Gurung or Tom Ford. I mean, I thought we were clear, we were concise, we outlined every major aspect of the position we're hiring for. But this candidate was just like, yeah, ripping into us because we're not wearing, I suppose, work work-ish related clothing that might be deemed, oh, well, of the younger generation. I don't know. It was just very odd. But then, like, before the candidate left, they were like, are there any other positions that I can apply to that might be a better fit for me? I retorted back, in what industry? Because clearly, sir, this is not the industry you want to be in. And the candidate was like, well, I just wanted to try my luck and see. I mean, you never know, right? And I'm like, right. But maybe, if I may give you a piece of advice, You might want to be like talking a mess if you are still trying to stay in this industry, because it sounds like you are. Because you never know when you interview again, and it may be the same hiring managers, or might interview in a different department, but like in this in a similar environment where it could be like an older area where they're going to be holding the interviews. Like the building might be 20 plus years old. I don't know. But I think you might have to adjust your opinion a little bit, your way of thinking. Because just as you were critiquing us and the clothes that we were wearing and the building, everything in between, you're forgetting that we also have feelings. Even though we're like remaining professional, it's still not a nice thing to do. Just saying. We're not close enough. We're not friends for you to just start rambling on about things that you think are old, aged. Yeah. Anyway, actually, I think about it. That might have been, no, it wasn't the youngest candidate that we had. But I think the candidate really was just hoping that it would be in a more glamorous setting. Unfortunately, healthcare isn't always glamorous. Well, it's more like a mindset. I'm just saying. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Let's see. What else do I remember? Oh. So I remember this one interview that we had, and I wasn't actually. It was irritating while it was happening, but then immediately after, I was I couldn't stop laughing. Uh, so we have had candidates who misrepresented their experiences, right, on their resumes. Yes, I'm being politically correct about this. Misrepresented. So the unit was hiring for a mechanic, a journeyman mechanic, which obviously the job description and the requirements were outlined in the email to the candidates to clearly convey the required experiences and licenses for this particular position, which includes at least 5 years of experience in the trade, and other supporting documents to bring, yada, yada, yada. And I thought, okay, well, this is good, right? Transparent enough. I know, I thought so too. Except this particular candidate had other ideas. First, they showed up late. I don't mean 10 minutes late. I mean like 45 minutes late. That's late. That is bold. So they had to wait longer now when they actually presented themselves to the interview, because we were in the middle of a scheduled interview who actually showed up on time. So, anyway, Um, they also, I want to say, they also came in woke up like this fashion, like rolled out of bed, did not like comb your hair type of thing, and flip flops, like this crunched up T-shirt and blue jeans. I'm like, okay, well, Mr. Man must have been in a hurry. I mean, and no, did not have a resume, did not have the supporting documents. They had themselves. And I hope that they actually had the driver's license because they were driving. So hopefully they didn't forget that at home. So it was like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how many boxes can we check here of things not to do? Check, 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 check. All of them were checked off. But again, we had to be professional. Even though the candidates are not all that great to us, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like they treat us like they're enemies. Oh. But went ahead with the interview because, it's the thing to do, even though obviously the candidate had to wait because we had, when he showed up finally, we already had a candidate with us. So anyway, he waited until after that candidate was done. And we begin the conversation of like, so please tell us about yourself, your experiences and what makes you a good fit for this position. Just kind of break the ice a little bit. Well, the joke was on us. That is literally because the candidate sat down, like they flopped down on the chair, like it was their couch at home. Like you're super comfortable, we just like go plop. Yeah, like that. And then they start to snicker, and I'm like, did somebody just fart? Did I just crack a jug? What's happening? And the candidate was like, I'm sorry, but this was kind of like a prank. I'm like, I'm sorry, what now? It was like, well, so I kind of copied somebody else's resume from the internet to score this interview. And I knew that it wasn't really going to get anywhere, but I didn't think like I would actually get a call from you guys or an email from you guys. And so I figured, you know what? They're stupid enough to not check. So I'm gonna just go. I'm gonna just show up. So those are his words. And I'm like, I'm sorry, where are the cameras? Like literally, where are the cameras? And like, this has got to be a prank. Mind you, we don't do background checks on our candidates until we have awarded them a contingent offer of employment. Contingent offer because we have to do the background check after we offer it to them, the position, and it's contingent on them passing the actual background check for the full awarding, I guess you can look at it that way, of the position. Because it's like, if it's just for an interview, I'm not going to do a background check. I'm just saying. That's like a waste of resources. Not that you didn't already waste their time, but I'm just saying. And the candidate was just like, wow, you guys are like so bad. Just so bad. Like, I just wasted your time. And I'm like, yes, sir. You definitely just wasted our time. And it's nothing to be like laughing about. Because you show up. Like, you didn't give a hoot. You're 45 minutes late. You didn't have any, like, supporting documents. You didn't have any resume with you, which now we know, obviously, that you copied somebody else's resume, which is like pretty freaking bold. Yeah. Was there anything else that I needed to cover? And he was like, no. It's like, whatever. It's not like I'm going to come back anyway. It's like, ooh, please, somebody. Show him exit stage left. Well, thankfully, he remembered the exit, so I didn't have to show him. Please exit that way. But still, I mean, 5 minutes later, I was like, you know what? We just got pranked hardcore. Like, ooh. And then I couldn't stop laughing. But still, just saying, please don't do that. Please don't do that. I do not recommend you doing that at all. It's, yeah, no. Please don't do that. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. It's just, holy cow. Holy cow. Yes. No. And please do not show up to an interview inebriated. I mean, inebriated. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. Because this candidate, I kid you not, showed up 3 sheets to the wind, like our use areas. Like, how did you get here? Did you Uber? Did you drive? We found out he actually drove himself to the interview. But it was just like, the candidate literally walked in through the door smelling all kinds of flammable. Like, if I were a smoker and I happened to just pass by with, like, a lit cigarette in my mouth, I probably would have gone up in flames. That's how flammable smelling Mr. Man was. It was just like, oh, hello. Like, did you just down a whole bottle of tequila in the car before you walked here? And it was like, whew, okay, we got to get this together because, we don't know this person. And obviously, clearly, they are drunk. And you know how drunk people can be? Cry, cry. Like, cry, cry. I was like, oof. Okay, we got to make sure that we gently approach the situation. And, Mr. Man was not having it. He was like pounding his hands on the counter, demanding to be seen right then and there. And I was like, sir, would you like some water? And I was like, do I look like I need some water? And in my mind, I'm thinking, yes, you do, honey. Like a whole barrel of water. Like, you need to sober up kind of water. Like, you know what? Water and coffee. Handle it. Like, we should reschedule this for like maybe next week when you're fully recovered. But I'm just saying, you when he said, do I look like I need water? I was like, oh, this is how it's gonna go. Okay, so that's the direction we're going. So obviously I was like, oof, oof. Yeah. All right. So, you had to like think on your toes. I'm like, okay. All right. So, definitely this candidate over prepared with the liquid courage. So, we're like, sir, okay. This way to the interview room, please. And OMG, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is about to get himself into trouble because he couldn't stand up straight. I was like, oh my goodness. I'm like, sir, yeah. we would have to cut this interview and we would have to reschedule because you're not in the state of mind that you need to be in. Clearly, for a proper interview. And I think it would be beneficial to you to reschedule. Holy shit. Mr. Man was not having it. Ooh, no. No, sir. No, sir. No, ma'am. It was not having it. He was like, what? Like, really? I drove here. I drove here early enough so I didn't have to be stuck in traffic. And you're telling me I need to reschedule? I am already here. Uh, And mind you, he was only like a foot or two away from me, and still, yeah, the alcohol was just like stifling my throat. I was just like, oh my gosh. I'm like, sir, please wait for us in the lobby, and we will be with you momentarily. I was hoping he would maybe kind of fall asleep, and then like we would let him sleep it off because he was like seriously inebriated, and I didn't want him to drive home like that in that state. I mean, obviously, and I don't know if he was drunk on the way from home to the interview, but it was just like, oh, Mr. Man, really, really. Oh, but he wasn't having that. He was getting belligerent, so I was like, I had to call my assistant and say, you need to call campus security. Obviously, I didn't say campus security because that would trigger Mr. Man more. I gave her a code word, and she knew what the code word was. Thank goodness. And shortly thereafter, campus police came in, and they were like, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And I'm like, "Oh, yes, yes. I believe this candidate needs an escort to their car." And the officers was like, "Oh, sir, how much have you had to drink?" I wasn't gonna ask that, but it was like the popos asked that question. I wasn't gonna ask. Again, I was really hoping they would just sit down and like maybe fall asleep and like sleep off the drunkenness. And then we'd wake him up when we're about to leave the office. I mean, obviously, we're not going to leave him there overnight. But, ooh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. It was like, wow, what a wasted opportunity. Yes, pun intended. It was like, yikes. Yikes. Like, there's just not a need for you to, like, have that much liquid courage. No, there's just never a need for you to have liquid courage for interviews at all. I mean, it's already like a heavy kind of day ish because you're going to an interview, so you're like racked with like nervous anxiety, right? And then like you double that up with alcohol, it's just not gonna be a good combination. As we witness with this particular candidate. I mean, holy cow. I was so glad he didn't take a swing at us because he was getting there. He was getting there. So, yeah, yeah. Actually, I have to thank Mr. Mayan. You want to know why? Because now we installed another security door between the lobby and our actual offices. Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Mayan. Even though you were super, super wasted when you came into the interview, that gave us a boost. That gave us the necessary justification why we need another security door, literal door, not like a security personnel, but like an actual door where you may not enter unless you're either buzzed in or your badge allows you entry. Ooh, and do we keep track of those badges? Yes. Ay, 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 ay. Anyway, as I was saying. Whoosh. Bad children. Just bad children. So, on the heels of that, not necessarily like the very next candidate, but another candidate who I thought was like really funny. Um, this was a group interview. It was 4 or 5 departments who needed to fill a position in each of their respective um, units, and we had this candidate who was running late, but it was, I have to say, and I was making excuses for this candidate because it was like not a stormy day, like just like the few hours before the storm hits, yeah, where it's like dark clouds, you may have some like lightning or thunder or whatever, and you already assumed there'd be heavy traffic on the road, accidents or whatever, because again with the storm, and or maybe other parts of the city or the neighboring cities are already experiencing the storm. So anyway, on our side, we had like the thunder and the lightning, and it wasn't sprinkling yet. So this candidate was again running late. They ended up in a different location. I always do this. I send a map to the location where we will be holding the interview, like literally. So then they know exactly where to park and they don't get lost because it's a big campus. Well, this candidate still got lost. And they ended up in like on the opposite side of where we were supposed to conduct the interview. So I said, I had asked my assistant to actually, please, if she doesn't mind, please escort the candidate to us. So you know the candidate knows where to go, or at least when the interview's completed, finished, then they can just get in their car and they can get on the way home. And I was like, during this time, I was thinking, we have had some gold star candidates where they're like really good fit, not perfect, but a really good fit. And then we've had candidates who agree to be interviewed and show up pissed off at the air, the sky, everything in between. Like that Rihanna song, Bitch, you better have my money. That kind of attitude. So, as we were just like, the hiring managers were just talking about like their most recent candidates in the interviews they've had, that just comes to mind. This candidate walks in, and holy cow, I think she brought the storm with her. Like everything was just a mess. It was just like the sky fell, the ground had opened up, there was lava oozing out of the ground, there was like a tornado. I don't know. But it was just like so much happening all at once with her. She was not going to waste any time giving us the read down on the position, the weather, the location, the sky, the air. I mean, the plants. We don't even have plants, but the trees, the traffic. And I'm just like, okay. Um, I'm very sorry that you're experiencing these things. On our way home, us, the group, would likely be experiencing a downpour by the time we get home because the lightning and the thunder and whatever that's like rolling around out that you can hear. And she was like, and I had to come to this interview. I didn't even have to come to this interview. Why did I even say yes to this interview? I'm like, are you talking out loud? Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, first of all, I talked these people into leaving because you are already late. But that's fine. But you complaining about everything that's going on that we cannot help. It's called nature. I mean, allure, I'm not God. She was just like so unhappy and so irritated. So I'm like, you know what? Thank you so much for coming. We hope that you have a better tomorrow, a better next few days, next few years, just a better time. But we will not be conducting this interview. And she was like, why not? I came. I know I'm late, but I had other things that like needed my attention. And it's like, okay, that was an opportunity for you to try to like kind of ask us or at least request kindly, hopefully, for us to reschedule. You know, just saying. But no, not that one. No. So, had to get that interview. Thanked her for her time. And off she went. But she wasn't going to walk out the door though, like not talking. She was like talking every kind of mess that she could think of. And I'm just like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Why, oh why? Why? Yeah, I know. It's like when I remember that day, I still go, why, oh why? Really? I mean, we have like great days where we just like laugh at the candidates and just kiki with them. And then there are days when you just have like these candidates that are just literally out of control. They just simply are out of control. It's like, you have people say like you have to grow thick skin. Oh, these candidates make you grow dinosaur skin. That's how thick your skin have to be. Sheesh. I mean, honestly, the craziness is just palpable. Literally. Okay. Well, let's see. Let's do one more. One more story before I bore you guys to pieces. Um, let's see here. Ah, I remember this one. I had this interview, and the candidate, I appreciated them disclosing that they had multiple jobs that they do. So, they're, or they're currently employed in. It wasn't like vlogging or something that they could do after hours. It was not a similar industry, but the hours were similar to the hours required for the position that we're hiring for. So we interviewed the candidate, really liked the candidate, and we thought, he'd be a really great fit. And then came the question of, oh, you realize that this this position, the hours are set. Like there's no moving the hours, right? It's from this time to this time. And then the candidate was like, "Oh, I can make it work because I also have a job that starts like a couple of hours after this position that we're trying to fill. It starts like a couple of hours from that." So I'm like, "Wait, what? What do you mean? Um, so does that mean you're going to leave this work, to attend to your other job?" And the candidate was like, "No, I'm just gonna ask my boss to actually schedule me for like the time that I'm leaving from this job to that job." And we're like, "How many hours do I'm curious how many hours you do in that particular job?" And they're like, "I work there Monday through Friday, 6 to 8 hours a day." Like, okay, so this position is 8 hours a day. It is also Monday through Friday. There are no weekends. And she said, "Oh, I wouldn't accept a job that would require me to be there on the weekends because I also have a weekend job." In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm not very good at math, but I think she's saying she already has two jobs and she's adding another job. Like, are you trying to sleep? Like, what is going on? Like, I don't want you to pass out, like, and drop dead because you haven't had any sleep and, like, ample rest. She said, "I'll just make it work." And I'm like, even with this particular job that would come with X amount of benefits, the salary, the everything else, the bells and whistles with it, per se. And she said, "Yeah, I would still do those other jobs." I'm like, I'm concerned that you wouldn't have enough time to rest and focus on any one of the potential three jobs if this one was included with the other two that you already have, because you're expended, you're going to be way too tired. And she was like, "Oh, I can multitask." And I'm like, "You can multitask? Okay." But again, um, this position requires that you're alert, awake, oriented for the 8 hours that you're here each and every day. Fully rested, hopefully, from the night before. And she's like, "Well, I can do it in like maybe an hour or two of sleep." And I'm thinking, oh no, oh no. I I'm and I had to tell the candidate, "I'm very very happy that you're really eager to hopefully perform your tasks well if you were selected for this position. However, I would have to I would have to advise you to take better care of yourself. Not to overextend yourself unnecessarily, because I wouldn't want you to hear that you know, probably never would likely never hear of the candidate, but after that interview, that you'd fallen ill or something because you didn't have enough rest. You didn't have ample rest. And she said, I just like working. I don't need the job. I just like working. And it kind of gave me some relief that she's not financially strapped, you know? That's why she was like trying to take on an additional job in addition to the two that she already has. But it still concerned me that um, she had these other jobs that she needed to attend to and obviously give attention to, but not necessarily prioritizing her health. So that was very concerning for me. So I did tell her that it concerned me that, her health may suffer. She she was so cute. She was like, "Oh, but I have insurance." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm so happy for you then." We didn't end up taking her. There were other candidates who actually bested her, and it wasn't because she had other jobs. They just really had better experiences and a more robust experience, I would say. Um, so we selected them for the position. And I do hope that that candidate who has like multiple jobs and just likes working does find time to relax, does find time to stop and smell the roses or just a cup of coffee. I know that life is short. That you grab every opportunity that comes your way. But if it's at the expense of your health and spending time with those you love, I think sometimes we have to just make that critical decision to, especially when we don't really need to um, work so hard or like are not required to have like X amount of money a month to pay for bills, and it's more like an extracurricular for us. Um, Hopefully, we expend time also with the people closest to our hearts versus not, because life is short and it swings both ways. You're either going to have a lot of time with people that you love, or you're not gonna make the time. I don't fault people for having multiple jobs because they have to put food on the table, because they have to um, pay for bills. I would never do that. But if it's not necessary for you to do so, please don't do it at the expense of your health. You know, so it's just a little food for thought. And on that note, I will be leaving you guys for the night. I will share some more stories. Um, I do have a lot of stories, my gosh. I didn't realize that we had so many interviews. And we're like, man, remember this time? I'm like, oh my goodness. How can I not? But we'll be sharing those with you in the upcoming weeks and months. And it would not just be stories of like candidates, it would probably also be like stories of rapport with various different types of personalities at work, um, and in betweens. So thank you for letting me share with you, for letting me vent to you, really, is what it is. And I'm super, super happy that you guys are subscribing and that you are watching the videos. I know I am boring. I'm sorry. But that's Sarcy. She's boring, she's witty, she's sarcastic. And you know, I've actually been told that I'm kind of funny. That is dripping with sarcasm, by the way. But anyway, look, you gotta love yourself. And I love me. It is what it is. And please, I'm not famous, so you don't have to bash me. But if it makes you feel happy to bash me, handle it. I wouldn't want to stand in the way of you and your mental health. Just saying. But just know I also have my mental health to try to keep intact. Just saying. Just saying. But darlings, have a good night. Remember to be kind. Have a good day. Have a good afternoon. Have a good rest of the week if I don't see you this week. I don't actually have a schedule. Obviously, you've noticed that. Duh. I do it when I have free time. And when I have brain cells left. Some days are really, really heavier than other days at work. And my position does not only require me to perform it or to, yes, perform interviews. I have other tasks, pressing tasks that I also perform throughout the days and the weeks and the months and all that good stuff. So, but all in all, I am very, very grateful, deeply grateful for the job that I have, for the opportunities that I have been blessed with. And although I did put in the hard work, I have to say that if the opportunities were not given to me or presented to me, yeah, they say like right place, right time, then it would really wouldn't matter how hard I work. So it's like 50-50. Right place, right time, and the hard work. So again, let's remember to journey gratitude and try to not take everything personally. At work, at home, whatever it is. Take some time for yourself, be kind to yourself, and also be kind to others. Good night, my darlings. I will see you on the next go around.